opinion page. What others say. Memo from Herbert Hoover to Donald Trump. Been there, botched that. The following editorial appeared last week in the Dallas Morning News. Editor's note. Through divine intervention, the editorial board of this newspaper has received a copy of a memo from the late Herbert Hoover, our country's 31st president, to Donald Trump. Dear Mr. President, it's come to my attention in the sweet hereafter, yes, I made it, that many below are comparing our two presidential campaigns, subsequent victories, and protectionist trade policies. Generally, these comparisons are in the form of a cautionary tale that goes something like this. With his misguided America's first economic policies, more specifically the tariffs he's imposed on steel, aluminum, agricultural products, lumber, etc., President Trump is following another GOP president who made a fortune in the private sector and came to politics later in life. That would be me, down the rabbit hole of a global trade war that will not end well for anyone. Can you say Great Depression? First, let me say 2018 is not 1929. I took office on March 4th, 1929, almost 8 months before the Great Crash. Yes, we both inherited booming stock markets, but mine was nowhere near the record high of 26,616 set this January. For me, this all changed when the market crashed on Black Tuesday in October 1929. I'm not saying a stock market collapse is on the horizon, at least not the near horizon. What I'm saying is that after the worldwide financial crisis in 2008, the U.S. government and central bank did a fine job of preventing total financial collapse and another Great Depression. For me, that all changed. I wish we had a TARP, Troubled Asset Relief Program, back in 1929. I'm all for free markets, but Treasury injecting $700 billion directly into the banking system in 2028 sure did help folks at all levels of the economy. End of article. Thank you, folks. That concludes today's reading of the Cape Cod Times on Monday, August 6th. This is Steve at TIC in Marshfield. Thanks for listening, and good day.
You've just heard news stories from the Cape Cod Times. Please stay tuned for more programming.
Unity Message of Hope, a non-denominational ministry serving people who are blind or visually impaired, has a virtual library of downloadable .brf Braille Unity publications, an audio lending library along with daily word in Braille, available free of charge. If you would like more details and information on this, please call toll-free at 866-421-3066. That's 866-421-3066. Or send your email requests to message-of-hope@unityonline.org. And if you would like to download Unity books in .brf format, simply log on to www.unity.org/Braille.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better. And kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor. Because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
Did you know the benefits of vaccine in preventing illness and death greatly outweigh the risks? This has been proven and supported by research conducted by the National Institute of Health and others. Parents know that kids are vulnerable to a host of infectious diseases. Make sure your child's immunizations are up to date and talk with your child's doctor if you have any concerns about vaccine safety. This information was provided by the National Institute of Health. For more information, please visit their website at www.nih.gov.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
Hi, this is Volunteer Judith, broadcasting from Marshfield, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Please stay tuned to the Talking Information Center. Next up, it's diabetes news and information. We hope you enjoy the program.
This reading is from the Diabetes Forecast for July-August 2018, and the first article is a letter from the CEO. Exciting beginnings. My path to the American Diabetes Association, or ADA, began 14 years ago. A routine checkup during pregnancy ended in a trip to the hospital, an IV with insulin, and a gestational diabetes diagnosis. After giving birth, I left the hospital with a beautiful baby girl and type 2 diabetes. I spent a long time in denial. Maybe you've been there, or maybe you're still there. Here's what snapped me out of it. My daughter, who by then was 5 years old, looked up at me one day and asked, "Are you going to die from diabetes?" That single question led me to exercise and more healthful eating. It led me to where I am today, an A1C of 6% and fewer medications. And it ultimately led me to the ADA and a deep calling to help the ADA achieve its mission. While I was the Senior Vice President of Operations and Chief Experience Officer for Sam's Club, I led the company's ADA volunteer team. I raised funds for the Kiss a Pig Gala event in Arkansas the past 2 years, and I was inspired by the ADA's mission and commitment to serving and supporting people with diabetes. And earlier this year, I joined the ADA's National Board of Directors. 5 months later, I joined the ADA as its new CEO. This is a tremendously important and deeply personal responsibility. You and I both know, intimately, what's at stake. We're fighting for our health, for our rights. We're fighting to increase awareness of a disease that's often misunderstood. As I join the ADA, my pledge to you is this. We'll raise our voices about the seriousness of diabetes. We'll support science toward a cure. We'll harness technology to create smarter, more innovative solutions. And we'll work to change people's mindsets about diabetes, which will in turn help them change behaviors to better manage the disease and reduce the risk of many others developing diabetes. I'm looking to the future, mine, yours, and that long-awaited day when we can finally have a cure. And I'm also looking at how the ADA can help you today. It's poised to make both a short and long-term impact in so many areas: research, advocacy, education, clinical work, insurance, drug prices, and more. Together we can make that happen. I'm a person just like you who, with each and every finger prick, is inspired to improve the lives of people with diabetes. I was destined for this role, and I'm honored to be leading the ADA into the future. And that was written by Tracy D. Brown, who's a person with diabetes. Tracy D. Brown started as the CEO of the American Diabetes Association in June. And the next article is a letter from Matt Peterson, who's a person with diabetes, who is the executive editor of this journal. To your health. Many of us set New Year's resolutions to get fit, but those short, cold days of January can make it tough to find the time and motivation to embark on an exercise and weight loss journey. Summer's long days and fresh fruits and veggies can make lifestyle changes easier to navigate. In our special Lifetime Guide section, beginning on page 45, we offer tips for doing just that. Not everyone with diabetes needs to lose weight, but if you are a few pounds or more from a healthy weight, you can find some inspiration in Ready, Set, Lose. 3 people with diabetes share their stories of the emotional ups and downs of weight loss and how they overcame those obstacles to find success. Exercise is a big part of weight loss. It's also a great way to help manage blood glucose, even if you're not trying to shed pounds. During physical activity, muscles take in glucose for fuel, leading to lower blood glucose levels. And one of the cheapest and easiest forms of exercise is walking. We look at how walking improves health, how much to do, and the best techniques in Walk This Way, starting on page 50. An important and often overlooked aspect of a workout, stretching. Learn to do it right, or you could end up hurting yourself. Don't know where to begin? Check out It's a Stretch on page 54, which offers 8 moves that'll keep you limber. There's a lot of talk about big steps you can take to improve health, and those things are great. But sometimes it's the littlest things that can make the biggest difference. We list 20 small changes you can make to improve your health now in Get Smart on page 35. See a diabetes educator, avoid tobacco, get enough sleep. Such lifestyle changes have a strong connection to reducing the risk for diabetes and improving diabetes management. Here's a bonus healthy living tip to get you going. Break your goals into small, manageable steps. Then find a way to have fun meeting them. To stay fit, I'll be playing a lot of disc golf this summer. If you haven't tried it, check it out. There are courses all over the country, and many of them are free. Cheers, and that's from Matt Peterson. This article is entitled Walk This Way. Getting in shape can be as easy as slipping on your sneakers and going for a brisk walk. A safety note, check with your healthcare provider before starting or changing your exercise plan. Looking for a workout routine that'll help you lose weight, lower blood pressure, reduce the risk of cancer, boost your mood, strengthen your bones, and reduce insulin resistance? You don't have to sign up for some mega intense sweat session to check off all those boxes. Just lace up your sneakers and go for a brisk walk. Walking is one of the safest yet most effective modes of exercise, says Richard Peng, a clinical exercise physiologist and certified diabetes educator at Healthcare Partners Medical Group in Los Angeles. It's also a potent weapon when it comes to beating back type 2 diabetes and managing all types of diabetes. It's never too late to reap the benefits of walking, whether you have just been diagnosed with diabetes or have lived with it for years. Why walking works. When you do moderate intensity aerobic exercise, such as brisk walking, your muscles use glucose to fuel your workout. This helps bring down your blood glucose levels, an effect that lasts for hours after your activity, says Peng. It also makes your muscles more sensitive to insulin. As a result, most people with diabetes who embark on a walking program see improvements in blood glucose. But there are other ways walking helps improve your diabetes. It blasts fat, particularly the dangerous visceral fat that accumulates deep inside your abdomen and has been linked to insulin-resistant and type 2 diabetes, says Gary Shiner, Clinical Director of Integrated Diabetes Services. It can also alleviate symptoms of depression. Middle-aged women with depression who walked for about 200 minutes a week reported more energy and better moods than those who were more sedentary, according to a study published in 2015 in the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. Walking may also reduce your risk of developing diabetes-related complications, such as nerve damage or neuropathy. According to a study published in the Journal of Diabetes and Its Complications, people with type 2 diabetes who spent at least 4 hours a week walking were much less likely to develop neuropathy than those who didn't exercise. It's the ultimate medication for diabetes, and you can access it without even taking a pill, says Shiner. The best part, you don't have to walk the equivalent of a marathon, or even a half marathon, to see results. Research shows that moderate intensity exercise may be better than vigorous activity when it comes to managing prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. A 2016 study published in the medical journal Diabetology, for example, found that when people with prediabetes performed moderate intensity exercise, such as walking briskly for 11.5 miles each week, their body's ability to process glucose improved by 7% after 6 months, compared with an only 2% improvement in those who ran the same distance. It may be that very intense exercise causes the body to make more stress hormones, increasing blood sugar, or simply that it makes you hungrier, so you end up eating more and thus raising your blood sugar, says Peng. Your exercise treatment. The American Diabetes Association recommends that all adults with diabetes engage in at least 150 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity activity, such as brisk walking, each week. You should spread it over at least 3 days a week, with no more than 48 hours without activity, since the effects of exercise on insulin sensitivity last for only a day or two, says Sherry Kohlberg Oakes, an exercise physiologist and professor emerita of exercise science at Old Dominion University in Norfolk, Virginia. If you've been sedentary, start slow. It's very important to start off with manageable chunks so that you don't injure yourself, says Shiner. This is particularly true if you have another condition related to your diabetes, such as neuropathy. But don't skip exercise altogether. Research shows that aerobic exercise, such as walking, 3 or 4 days a week, along with strength training, such as lifting weights, can significantly reduce pain and neuropathic symptoms. Begin with 5 minutes of walking a day. Each week add another 5 minutes until you're walking somewhere in the range of 30 to 60 minutes most days of the week. If you have neuropathy or other conditions that put you at risk for falls, consider walking on a treadmill so you can hold on to the handlebars, or use a walking stick when you're outdoors. If you're already a seasoned walker, you can bring your workout up a notch by throwing in some interval training, says Shiner. This can be as simple as adding a few hills to your walk, if you're on a treadmill, or speeding up the pace at various points. If you normally hoof it at a 4-mile-an-hour pace, for instance, increase your speed every 10 minutes so that you're walking at 5 miles an hour for 3 to 5 minutes. Be mindful of your blood glucose, especially if you take insulin or sulfonylureas, which can cause low blood glucose, hypoglycemia. To be safe, check your level before your walk. You'll want it to be above or around 120, says Peng. Heading out for more than 30 minutes? Plan to check your blood glucose along the way and carry glucose tablets or another fast-acting carb in case your blood glucose goes too low. After your walk, check your blood glucose again. Step by step. Everyone, regardless of fitness level, benefits if they walk with proper form. Stand straight with your shoulders rowed back, swinging your arms freely, with a slight bend in your elbows, says Lee Jordan, a health coach and personal trainer with the American Council on Exercise. Focus on walking smoothly, rolling your foot from heel to toe. This will help you avoid strains or other injuries. If you want to speed up, don't lengthen your stride, which can cause stress on joints. Instead, simply take shorter steps at a faster pace. And remember to smile. You should feel invigorated and happy when you're walking, says Jordan. If you do, you're more likely to keep doing it. Get motivated. Starting a walking routine is easier than sticking with it. Here are 3 tips to keep you in the game. 1. Track your progress. Just seeing how many miles you've walked, whether it's in a single workout or over the course of a day, can be very motivating, says Gary Shiner, Clinical Director of Integrated Diabetes Services. One review of pedometer studies, for example, found that people who used a pedometer to meet a fitness goal were more likely to increase their physical activity, lose weight, and improve blood pressure. 2. Monitor your blood glucose. Comparing your pre-workout glucose reading to your level after exercise can be a great motivator. My clients tell me that when they check their blood sugar before walking and it's 180, and then right after it's down to 120, it inspires them to keep exercising, says Sherry Kohlberg Oakes, an exercise physiologist and professor emerita of exercise science at Old Dominion University at Norfolk, Virginia. And 3, find a walking pal. People who seek out a workout companion end up exercising more than those who go solo, according to a study published in 2016 in the British Journal of Health Psychology. And ask the expert, what's the best time of day to walk? Whenever you can fit it in, says Gary Schneider, Clinical Director of Integrated Diabetes Services. Research suggests, however, that a short stroll after eating may help lower post-meal blood glucose levels more than exercising at other times of the day. One study found that people with type 2 diabetes who took a 10-minute walk after a meal had 12% lower blood glucose than those who took a 30-minute walk at another time. This article is entitled Matter of Heart. A crop of type 2 medications are proving to prevent heart problems. Here's what you need to know. Written by Andrew W. Curry. In 2010, cardiologist Steve Marceau, MD, helped organize a massive trial of the diabetes drug liraglutide. Researchers already knew it could reduce blood glucose levels, but new Food and Drug Administration rules required them to make sure it was also safe for the heart before it was recommended as a diabetes treatment. The study, nicknamed LEADER for Liraglutide Effect and Action in Diabetes, Evaluation of Cardiovascular Outcome Results, was huge, complex, and expensive. It involved 9,340 people with type 2 diabetes at high risk for cardiovascular events, and 410 hospitals, clinics, and research centers in 32 countries. Half of the patients were given a placebo. The other half took liraglutide. Neither the participants nor their doctors knew who was getting medication and who wasn't. Meanwhile, their heart health was tracked closely for almost 4 years. The ambitious study's goal was modest. The trial was initially launched just to test for safety, says Marceau, now the medical director of cardiovascular services at HCA Midwest in Kansas City, Missouri. Nobody was very optimistic the clinical trials would show a benefit. At the end of the study, Marceau and his collaborators were surprised by the results, which were eventually published in 2016 in the New England Journal of Medicine. Participants who took liraglutide were slightly less likely to have a heart attack or stroke than those who took the placebo. They were also less likely to die from cardiovascular disease. In 2018, we can say we now have therapies to improve the lives of people with diabetes and their cardiac health, Marceau says. We've never had that before. Twist of fate. The discovery of heart benefits for type 2 meds such as liraglutide was something of an accident. More than a decade ago, clinical trials for diabetes drugs typically lasted 6 months, and drug companies weren't required to study the long-term cardiovascular risks. In fact, participants with a history of cardiovascular disease were often excluded from drug trials. But then a 2007 study sparked controversy and a major change to the drug approval process when it claimed the blood glucose lowering drug rosiglitazone, or Avandia, increased the risk of heart attack and cardiovascular health. The drug was restricted for years, although later studies showed no increased risk for heart attack. As a result, the FDA put in place a fresh set of rules requiring new diabetes medications to be thoroughly tested to make sure they didn't increase the risk of heart attacks or strokes in people with diabetes. In the decades since, the data that emerged turned out to be a positive surprise. When the FDA required all new drugs to be monitored for cardiovascular outcomes, lo and behold, the study showed that several of these diabetes drugs had benefits for cardiovascular health, says Om Ganda, MD, director of the lipid clinic at the Joslin Diabetes Center in Boston. It's a whole new chapter we've seen develop in the past few years. Healthy ticker. If you have type 2 diabetes and have been diagnosed with cardiovascular disease, there are 3 types of drugs you should know about. The first, SGLT2 inhibitors. The class includes the oral medications Jardiance, Invokana, and Farxiga. They lower blood glucose by preventing the kidneys from reabsorbing glucose. Instead, glucose is released into the urine, where it's passed out of the body. Drug trials have shown that sodium glucose cotransporter 2, or SGLT2 inhibitors, affect cardiovascular risks. Data on dapagliflozone's benefits is newer and less robust. However, a study published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2015, for instance, found significantly lower rates of death from cardiovascular disease in those who took empagliflozin versus a placebo. Metformin. This type 2 medication lowers the amount of glucose produced by the liver, which in turn helps lower blood glucose. The landmark United Kingdom prospective diabetes study, published in The Lancet in 1999, drew a link between metformin use and cardiovascular benefits. And in 2016, Johns Hopkins University primary care physician and researcher Nisa Maruther evaluated hundreds of smaller studies and concluded that compared with sulfonylureas, another common class of type 2 diabetes drugs, metformin was associated with a significantly better reduction in heart attack risk. And finally, GLP-1 receptor agonists. Glucagon-like peptide, or GLP-1 receptor agonists, including Victoza, Trulicity, Byetta, and others, are designed to reduce blood glucose by stimulating receptors on specialized insulin-producing cells in the pancreas, encouraging them to produce more insulin. In a series of drug trials, including the LEADER study Marceau helped put together, GLP-1 receptor agonists, which are typically injected once daily to once a week, reduce the risk of heart attack, stroke, and heart disease-related death by 10% or more. Future thinking. Maruther and others are quick to point out that it's still early days for both SGLT2 inhibitors and GLP-1 receptor agonists. We don't know the biologic mechanism by which either reduces the risk of cardiovascular disease, she says. Researchers know that they fight heart disease, in other words, but that they still need to figure out how. That knowledge could help develop even better treatments or determine who stands to benefit the most from the existing drugs. And unlike metformin, which has been in use for decades, not much is known about the long-term side effects of these medications, most of which have been available for less than a decade. For patients with diabetes and cardiovascular disease, the heart benefits probably outweigh any tiny added risks. Newer isn't always better, Maruther says, but if you have cardiovascular disease, you should be considering them. If your doctor doesn't recommend these type 2 medications for you, don't worry. There are other things you can do to lower cardiovascular risk factors, including managing your blood glucose, cholesterol, and blood pressure. Regular exercise and healthy eating also go a long way toward ensuring your ticker is in top shape. The link between certain type 2 medications and cardiovascular benefits is welcome news. The most common causes of death for adults with diabetes are heart attacks and strokes. It's well established that diabetes is a major cardiovascular risk factor, says Om Ganda, MD, director of the Lipid Clinic at the Joslin Diabetes Center in Boston. It increases cardiovascular risk 2 to 4-fold. The link. The connections between diabetes and heart disease work on several levels. There's evidence that high blood glucose damages the lining of the major blood vessels over time. The stiffening that results is called atherosclerosis, and it's a major cause of heart attacks and strokes. At the same time, people with diabetes are more likely to have a collection of other conditions, high blood pressure, obesity, and high cholesterol, that make heart disease worse. And conditions such as nerve damage can make exercise difficult, which raises cardiovascular risks. The research. The close connection between diabetes and heart disease has been a focus of research for decades. One key question has been the importance of tight blood glucose management to heart health. At one time, doctors thought the connection was iffy at best. It took a study called The Epidemiology of Diabetes Interventions and Complications to really turn the cardiology community's thinking around. Researchers followed over 1,400 people with type 1 diabetes, all of whom had participated in the Diabetes Control and Complications trial from 1983 to 1993. Long-term follow-up with the study's participants revealed two major findings. People who kept their A1C under 7% had a reduction in cardiovascular events, and those cardiovascular benefits often took years, even decades, to show up. Long-term follow-up to the 1999 United Kingdom prospective diabetes study found similar cardiovascular benefits of tighter blood glucose management in people with type 2 diabetes, though those benefits also took years to appear. In short, good diabetes management seems to have long-term heart benefits, even if it takes a while for those benefits to appear. The Goldilocks solution. Managing your blood glucose is important for your heart health, but experts say there are some reasons people shouldn't get too stringent with their blood glucose goals. There's now a lot of debate in different medical communities as to what's our best target, says Thomas Maddox, a professor of cardiology at the Washington University School of Medicine. Older adults with type 2 diabetes and pre-existing heart disease, for example, might want to relax their blood glucose goals a bit to avoid hypoglycemia and the dangers associated with it. Younger people with type 1 or type 2 might be better served keeping their A1C on the lower side of the recommended range to avoid long-term damage to the heart from high blood glucose. We talk to patients about the Goldilocks solution, Maddox says. Control, but not so tightly you're dropping your blood sugar too low and getting in trouble. And we'll start this article and see how far we get. Get Smart, 20 Ways to Improve Your Health Right Now by Allison Tsai. The first step to a healthier diabetes lifestyle can often feel like a giant leap, but not all change is a monumental effort. There are smaller, more manageable shifts you can make to bridge the gap between the past you and the new, improved you. You don't have to take our word for it, though. Here are 20 tips straight from the minds of top diabetes experts and the pages of scientific journals to get you started. 1. Take pen to paper. Write a Dear Self letter that describes why you want to make a particular change. Maybe you want to lower your A1C before becoming pregnant, or lose weight before your granddaughter's wedding. On the days when your motivation is dwindling, pull out your letter. It will remind you of the why and motivate you again. 2. Strike a balance. Switch your focus from avoiding certain foods to finding balance in your diet. For example, mashed potatoes are fine if they're portioned to fill roughly a quarter of a medium plate, with a quarter of the plate containing a lean piece of meat and half of the plate containing vegetables. 3. Search for discounts. Medication costs can be a burden and lead some people to skip their doses, but that can result in poorly managed blood glucose. Instead, scout out the best deals on medications by checking with drug manufacturers and your health insurance. Pharmaceutical companies often provide medication coupons to patients, and many times you can save money by using the mail order benefit your insurance offers. And 4, shift your perspective. Rethink the word disease as it relates to diabetes. Disease conjures images of illness and can make you feel like you're not in control of your health. Instead, think of diabetes as a very manageable condition. Viewing diabetes this way, you might start feeling better about yourself and improve your outcomes. And we'll continue with this article next reading. Happy listening.
Thank you for joining us for Diabetes Update. We hope you found the content of this program informative. If you missed any part of it, you can listen to it again on our website at ticnetwork.org.
Each day in America,